Growing up, I wasn't allowed to play with the other children in the community. Over 100 pack members lived in the main building, a large stone Victorian that looked like something built for Parliament. The manor functioned as a school for kindergarten through 12, and even as a dorm for 7th grade and up. Beyond the courtyards and large lawns, there were 4 more buildings a quarter of the size that held each corner of the walled-off property. It was quite the fortress, with large gates built into the southern and northern walls. The outer territory had a few neighbourhoods and individual homes. The entire territory was about 500 acres of beautiful Nova Scotia countryside. Plenty of forest, rolling hills of tall grass, and I heard that there was a beach on one side of the outer border, not that I'd ever seen it myself. All this belonged to the community. It didn't take me long to learn the community hierarchy. The maids in the kitchen barked orders at me, and I did my best, knowing that somehow I ranked the lowest amongst them all. They didn't like me being around them, so I swept and cleaned whenever they weren't there. No one praised me for a job well done, and I was often dismissed without food. I never resented them for it. I think they just forgot that I hadn't eaten and simply wanted me out of their way. Sometimes I would stuff a roll in my pocket and sneak into a small, dark cupboard before the staff came back to the kitchen so that I could listen to them talk. They liked to talk about the moon a lot. I noticed that everywhere I looked there were wolves or moons incorporated into the design of the architecture. A sculpture here, a painting there. The big painting in the hall was moved after my first night there, but the series of landscapes that replaced it had wolves and moons as their main theme. The kitchen staff spoke of wolves a lot too. I was sure I was misunderstanding them when they talked about becoming wolves, but eventually curiosity drove me to sneak out of my silo one night. I peeked out of the kitchen window and saw the adults and younglings gathering outside. They were all smiles, walking around in bathrobes. When the moon came over the horizon, they all slipped off their robes and turned into wolves. I wasn't scared. I watched in fascination as the wolves happily ran into the woods. Was this why my mother left me here? Because I was a wolf?
Am I a wolf too?
The moon greeted me.
I see you. I know you, dear one, as I know them.
I felt so happy to be a part of something so magical. I forgot my sadness and worked even harder from then on. I was allowed to attend school, but I sat in the back. Like I said, I wasn't allowed to play with my classmates. They called me halfling and ran away calling me a creep any time I looked at them. I didn't understand why, but it was made clear that they didn't like my existence. I was different from everyone. First off, I was short. Most in the pack were over 6 feet once full grown. The alpha was near 7 feet, the giant that he was. I was a whole size smaller than anyone in my class. Next, there was my voice, quiet and high, and I developed an accent I couldn't quite shake. It was a subtle difference, but it made me stand out, so I learned to say as little as possible. Even the teacher stopped asking me direct questions. I was also the only Asian in the complex. Most of the families in the territory were indigenous or European mix, but that wasn't the difference that bothered them. What they hated most were my eyes. Ghost eyes, they had called it the first time they saw me. Blue so light, it almost glowed in contrast with the dark rim. My jet black hair provided a stark contrast, and that didn't help. Trying to keep a low profile, I kept my long black hair in a bun and made myself some long bangs to cover my eyes. No eye contact was the best policy around here. I lived in a manor filled with alpha wannabes. One wrong look, and they'd tear my head off. I had my share of being shoved into walls and kicked to the ground. I preferred to avoid that sort of confrontation, so I hid my eyes and said nothing. Avoiding them became a little more difficult once they moved to the dormitories. Not only that, but at 12, the girls said that their inner wolf started speaking to them. Not me, though. No wolf spoke to me. One by one, the girls were given rank. By the time we were 14, the boys began to have their first shifts, and they were sorted into the hierarchy too. I was the only one with nothing to show. Those classified as warriors moved to the combat class one by one. At first, I was relieved because some of the kids that bullied me moved classrooms, but then there was the announcement that there would be an elite class formed from the top warriors of all grades. The current alpha wanted to retire in the next decade, apparently, and wanted the strongest to prove themselves as the next leaders. School became extra tough after that. More younglings from other packs were sent to study at Black Wolf in hopes to get into the elite class, which meant more warrior class students who took to shoving me to show how brave they were. The mean girls became meaner, and the Omegas increased their distance from me. I asked to switch to remote learning after a dislocated shoulder. The teacher was more than happy to accommodate. I didn't cry. I trusted the moon.
I'm here. It's okay. I'm here. I'm here.
It's okay.
I see you. I see you.
I see you. I see you.
My wolf was probably shy or quiet like me. I didn't let the taunting of the younglings get to me. Instead, I would take a moment to remind myself that I was a part of something amazing. No matter how difficult things were, there was a magic that connected us to the moon. The moon who spoke to me. I wasn't alone. I kept my mouth shut, my head down, and focused on my tasks. I even graduated 2 years early, not that there was anyone to celebrate that milestone with me, unlike when my classmates graduated last year. They had a wild graduation party. I was invited to clean up the mess at 5 in the morning. Many of the Omegas and warriors went off territory to college, leaving only the leadership candidates behind. I envied all of them. They were all going somewhere in life. I couldn't think of anything I could do out there. All I knew was the life I had. 14 years passed since I was brought here, and I still lived in my forgotten silo tucked away to the side of the kitchen. I had some hand-me-downs. I kept a few library books. The nicest thing I had was an old blue diary that I dared not write in. The mattress was lumpy, and the blankets weren't enough in winter. But still I was thankful I had a place to stay, and made the best of it. It was nice having a high, and I mean high, ceiling. It made the space feel roomy even though the room was just 6 feet wide. Me, in all my glorious height of 5'4", was able to stretch out, but the mattress barely fit. The cylindrical space had one window about 4 meters up. The peaked roof was full of cobwebs. There was a hidden door behind the dresser where the grain would have been let out way back when. It led to a secret garden. I say garden, but it was a tiny square patch of dirt left to rot after an addition to the manor had been built against the old silo tower. Other than my little door, there was no way there. The sun only shone for an hour a day, and the moon rarely passed directly over. I made the most of it. I carefully set aside seeds from the fruits and vegetables I ate and planted them. I was most excited about a pear tree that was now shoulder high. I had snuck a few seeds into a broken pot in the main garden outside the manor. Once the sapling was growing strong, I brought the pot back to my little square and set it right in the centre so it could get as much sun as possible. I also found jasmine, which was now winding against the walls. A few roses, some hydrangea. I had snuck little saplings back to my patch over the years. Last month the moon actually passed directly overhead. The pear tree had blossomed so the white petals reflected the moonlight. The white jasmine looked like stars on the stone walls. My garden was sacred to me. Secret and safe. No one could find me here. The flowers gave me solace, and the vegetables fed me on days I was not given enough food. I didn't have to be afraid here. It had been a hard 14 years, but today was the day it could all change. Tonight was the flower moon, the night of the moon blessing. I woke before the sun to make enough food for 200 people. People had big appetites here, especially on special occasions. The moon blessing was a sacred ceremony held once a year. It was conducted by the female elders, for girls who turned 19 in time for the flower moon. They would become full wolves for the first time, letting their spirit wolf run under the moonlight. Even more amazing was how some would receive an additional gift from the moon herself. The moon gift. I had read up on different types of moon gifts recorded over the years, and studied how each gift type could be helpful to the pack. Strangely, more Omegas received moon gifts, enhancing their talents in more domestic capacities. For warriors, usually a talent was given for tactics or speed or strength. The rarest were elemental gifts. As far as I could tell, it was about 5% of each rank that got a moon gift, and most weren't so dominant. It fascinated me, but I never presumed I would get a gift like that. I'd be delighted just to be a proper wolf, to stand under the moonlight in a gossamer robe and a crown of spruce, a part of my pack. Ever since the elders had me help with the setup and clean up of the ceremony the last few years, and I saw how beautiful the ceremony was, I often dreamed of when it would be my turn. Now that I was finally 19, I could attend the ceremony. This was my last chance. Even though my wolf never spoke to me, I never gave up hope that maybe this halfling would run under the flower moon as a wolf. If my wolf would wake at the moon's beckoning, I would no longer be looked at as a halfling. I would be welcomed as one of the pack. If not, I would be human. Humans couldn't stay in territory. I'd be kicked out. I'd be homeless. I wouldn't even know how to live off territory. This thought scared me, even though I knew it was a kindness to send the non-wolves away. Mating with humans was discouraged, of course, not only to keep the existence of the supernatural community a secret, but because of the inherent danger posed to the human partner. On the rare occasion that a halfling was born, most of them became wolves. There were few records of what happened to halflings that remained human, but I had read them all. Some packs chose to bite them. To keep wolfkind a secret, unawakened halflings weren't allowed to leave, they reasoned. If they were given the bite, and didn't go mad, they would be allowed to stay. If they went too mad and became uncontrollable, they were killed, if the madness didn't kill them first. To be honest, the bite hardly ever produced functional werewolves out of failed halflings. The ones that survived still had a touch of madness left in them. I shuddered to think about it. Yes, being sent away was a mercy. Still, instead of focusing on the fear, I chose to hope. After all, the moon spoke to me. I'm sure she would bless me. I'm sure of it. I heard a huge yawn from the kitchen entry. I glanced up without thinking, my eyes meeting with the pack leader's son. Reed looked surprised by my presence. I looked away quickly.
I didn't know anyone was up so early,
he commented, sniffing the air. I assumed he was smelling for food. I am sorry, I have not finished with the preparations yet. I can't make a plate for you right away. He was quiet, so I chanced to peek at him. He looked grumpy. I quickly looked down again. I heard him pull up the bar stool.
Coffee too, if you don't mind.
My heart was pounding so fast. He was making me nervous. I hoped I wouldn't offend him. I knew which types of foods he preferred, so I started with coffee for him, then fried up a ham steak and scrambled up some eggs. Within 5 minutes, he had a hot plate of food.
Wow, that was fast.
I hope it suits your taste. He nodded with his mouth full. I continued with the breakfast prep. 10 batches of pancake batter, 5 large skillets of 30 eggs each. Slices and slices of cantaloupe. Bowls of grapes being washed. Reed watched from the side. He wasn't leaving. Are you still hungry? I can get you something else.
No, I can see you've got your hands full. You do this every morning.
I do. I am grateful that I can be of use. He knew I was working as a servant because of my status. Unlike other young werewolves, I had to earn my keep. If I wasn't useful, I would be thrown out. I continued my work, but every now and then I glanced through my bangs. He was still watching me.
I don't think I've seen any other youngling work here, other than you.
There have been some, here and there.
No doubt helping out their parents who work here.
Yes, usually on holidays. I had never had a pleasant conversation with anyone here before. I wished it could continue. I wished it would end before I ruined it by doing or saying something wrong. He took a deep breath in.
I just couldn't stay asleep when it smelled so good in here.
He came beside me to put his dishes in the sink. He was right by my ear as he said.
So delicious.
As abruptly as he came, he left. I smiled to myself as I washed his dishes. He thought the food smelled delicious. So much so he had to come down to the first floor from the third. Wait, I hadn't started cooking yet when he came in. What did he mean? I decided he was probably just being polite and making up something nice to say. Still, it was actually nice, wasn't it? Most people ignored me or shoved me aside. He spoke to me like I was worth speaking to. Even if it was just this once, I felt grateful enough to last a lifetime. I was glad when the other workers arrived to take over the kitchen duty.
Good work, as usual, Audry. You can go now,
the head cook said. That's how they liked it. They asked that I come in early to get everything started, but they wanted me out of their space as soon as they arrived. As I left, I heard one of them say, "Oof, she gives me the creeps." I didn't know why I had that effect on the pack members. There was nothing about me that could possibly be threatening. I wasn't a full-fledged werewolf like the others, and I had no powers that I knew of, and I knew I wasn't intimidating. I just brought out the shivers in most. I hoped once I was a wolf that I wouldn't feel creepy to them. I moved on to the cleaning. Today I was cleaning the second floor. I tried to get everything done before the pack finished their breakfast. I moved with extra energy, practically humming to myself. I was taking my nice conversation with Reed as a sign. The moon would surely make me a real wolf tonight. My life would change, and I would belong. My heart forgot caution and filled my day with anticipation.